welcome to the Polsky Center celebration in honor of Black History Month. The Polsky Center, in partnership with the National Black MBA Association Chicago, presents a celebration of Black entrepreneurs and investors in tech, experience and networking, and highlighting Black investors and entrepreneurs. Get to know those making history in our. Before we begin, let's go over some quick items. Please put your questions in the chat. We will get to them towards the Q&A session. I would like to introduce our partner representing the National Black MBA Association, Chicago, Melinda Jordan. Bold, bright, and resourceful are attributes often used to describe Melinda Jordan, affectionately coined MJ the Closer. As an energetic and sassy Southern belle, Jordan has nearly 20 years of brand marketing and business management experience from Fortune 500 companies and top brands like Coca-Cola, Michelin Tires, and Energizer. Currently with Jameson Sotheby's, Okay, thank you. International Realty, an international powerhouse real estate brokerage, this multi-million-dollar selling realtor provides her clients with an exemplary experience through superior service, where she leverages her extensive market knowledge, corporate marketing background, and long-standing real estate investing experience and training. I can attest to that because she was giving us some really good advice. So Melinda, just giving you another shout out. Jordan is a casebook example of transitioning from corporate America to entrepreneurship, and this bold achiever did this during the 2010 through 2010 housing bust. Melinda Jordan holds a Bachelor of Science degree in journalism and Master of Business Administration degree in marketing. Melinda also holds numerous real estate designations and certifications with her. So pretty impressive, Melinda, but we're so thankful for your partnership. And thank you for all the work that you did to make this event happen. Next, I would like to introduce our lovely moderator, Vince Williams. Vince Williams represents the Chicago Minority Supplier Development Council. Vince Williams is the 5th President and Chief Executive Officer for the Chicago Minority Supplier Development Council. His prior position as Vice President of Economic Empowerment and the Director of the Illinois Small Business Development Center at the YWCA Metropolitan Chicago involved facilitating and coordinating the services of the Illinois SBDC and its initiatives of encouraging economic growth and development while creating, identifying, and cultivating strategic partnerships within the communities around Chicagoland, particularly on the south and west sides that have been historically marginalized and disinvested. As a small business owner himself, he also provides subject matter expertise, resources, programs, and one-on-one advising to aid small business owners and entrepreneurs seeking to start, scale, grow, or retire their businesses. He was recently named by Black Enterprise magazine as a Black Enterprise Modern Man and serves on several nonprofit boards. He was also nominated to Diversify MBA magazine's elite list of top 100 emerging executive leaders under the age of 50, and is a native Southsider and comes from a family of entrepreneurs. He received a dual MBA in finance and management at the Morris Graduate School of Management in Chicago and holds a nonprofit executive leadership certification from Northwestern Kellogg School of Management. That was a condensed bio, but another pretty impressive bio. So Vince, I'm going to hand it off to you, and thank you so much for your partnership as well.
Thank you so much, Isra. And very nice to meet everyone in this new virtual environment. We're going to be very casual tonight. You know how we operate typically with some of the events that we do at the National Black MBA, and now partnering with the Polsky Center. It's just an honor to really be presenting this with this great panel of speakers, if you will, that are going to share with us their experiences of entrepreneurship and Blacks in tech. And so I'm going to do introductions of each of them, and then we'll go a little bit into their stories, their journeys. And towards the end, we'd love to welcome some questions from the audience today. But again, keeping this very organic in this incredibly cold state that Chicago is in at this current time. So thank you. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Danielle James. Dr. James views giving back as her calling and obligation to those who are following in her footsteps. She was born and raised on the south side of Chicago, and through determination and hard work, she earned a Bachelor of Science degree from Howard University with a focus on biology and a minor in chemistry. She's currently, or she has served, I'm sorry, as president of the Howard University Alumni Club. And then she's co-founder of a nonprofit organization called A Bridge for You Foundation. And it's a diverse organization committed to serving the community through financial growth, social awareness, and academic enhancement. She continues to show her pride in her alma mater by serving as one of the coordinators for the Escape to the Mecca trip, which sends more than 50 high school students from the city of Chicago to Howard University during the spring break for a weekend experience. I can only imagine what that's like right now during the pandemic, but nonetheless, that effort is definitely commended. Through her persistence, progression of this trip over the years has led to collaboration with the White House, and First Lady Michelle Obama spoke to the students during their annual trip in 2013. So, Dr. James, welcome to the panel. Apologize here. Next up on the panel, we have Shawn Hill. Shawn is a partner at Modern Ventures, where he focuses on managing their portfolio and overseeing strategic initiatives for the firm. Modern Ventures is a venture fund headquartered here in Chicago, which invests in early stage technology companies that are in real estate, finance, insurance, and home services. He works strategically with technology companies and Modern Limited partners to source investments, building synergistic value between industry executives and Modern's portfolio. He's bringing to this panel 20 years of business development and operational experience in the real estate, lending, and financial services sector. So we're sure to get some great venues and vignettes of information from Shawn for today. And then last but definitely not least, welcome to our panel, Nathan Pelzer, who's the co-founder and CEO of Clinify Health, a digital health company that works with physician practices that care for patients in underserved communities to achieve financial stability. In 2019, Clinify supports primary care physicians by enabling these practices to enter into and succeed in value-based arrangements by leveraging their proprietary clinical decision optimization platform. Say that really fast, a couple of times, guys. And that platform is called Clinify Cloud, as well as providing market-based resources to support patient care in both the clinic and the community. Prior to founding Clinify, Nathan was the head of corporate strategy for Village MD, a national primary care provider organization located here in Chicago, where he's responsible for coordinating strategic initiatives to improve patient health outcomes while reducing overall cost of care. Nathan has a Bachelor's of Science degree in finance from the University of Minnesota and an MBA from the University of Chicago's Booth School of Business. Panelists, welcome, and thank you for joining us for our Black History Month event and Blacks in Tech with the Chicago chapter of the National Black MBA and the Polsky Center for Entrepreneurship. So I'm going to dive right in, guys. And if you don't mind, ladies first. So Dr. James, please, can you tell us a little bit about your company and how, a two-part question, and how you got into tech?
Okay, so I'm a pharmacist. I work for Walgreens for about 17 years now. So I started when I was really young. And I now own the company. I'm the CEO of Huck's Made Production, which is a virtual logistic company where we do a lot of events virtually as of right now because of COVID-19. So we've done events, which actually kind of started with us doing virtual tours because I graduated from Howard University. So I'm also president of the HBCU Alliance, where we started doing these virtual tours due to COVID because students couldn't do their college tours, historically Black college. So we created a company where we started doing these, which started getting just known from different cities, different states, and it became a nationwide tour that was all over the world, basically, of last year, where we did about 75 historically Black colleges. And from then, we just started doing more events that were virtual due to COVID. We did graduations, we've done fundraisers. So it's been very fun and it's been very new because, like I said, I am a full-time pharmacy manager with Walgreens, but my passion has always been to give back to Chicago, to any student that is interested in, progressing with historically Black colleges or just going to school in general. So this has been a very fun trip on top of having a full-time job, but it's been amazing to just give back to the community of my knowledge, especially with being in retail for about 17 years. So it's been very interesting and I love it. So that's me.
Outstanding. Thanks so much, Dr. James. I like that transition of sharing that you're holding a full-time job, but you're also working with your journey towards entrepreneurship, which is really what a lot of us on the call are looking to learn more about, some of those best practices there. What we do know is that there really are not a lot of Blacks represented in the tech space. And I think we can find tons of data that share, the disproportionate amount of Blacks that are in the industry. So, Shawn, if you don't mind telling us, tell us about your company and also how you transitioned that, knowing your background from financial services and the such, to get you into this space.
Yeah, well, people ask me all the time. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. People ask me all the time how I got here, and I said, I don't know. I always tell them I'm a state school kid from Jersey that somehow broke into venture, right? And I think you have to be deliberate in your path. I mean, I knew, I think from a younger age, that I wanted to figure out how to not have people say no when doors came open. So I was very deliberate in sort of getting lots of different skills to get there. I started in sales, went to operations, went to business development, and I learned every position that I could. So when the door came open at some point to move up, I didn't want anyone to tell me no. And I didn't even know about venture capital. 40% of venture capital partners go to two schools, Harvard and Stanford. So, there's certainly there's a path, but that's not the path for most of us. And, when I'm really, really passionate and, I see Tony's on the phone. Tony's been doing this for a long time in the city and knows like there's such a small, intimate group and there's such nepotism here. And, it's just such a small club. How do you break in? I'm passionate about helping other folks get into the space. Part of it is 1% of investors at a partner level or above are African American. That's a tough place to start. 3% of funding goes to minority, in all of venture. So that's a tough place to start. I think the story is one, when I mentor sort of young associates or analysts or others, like how to get here, it's be deliberate in your path and use your network as much as possible and differentiate your skills. I have tried to learn every single thing that I could. So when the time came, there wasn't an answer. The answer couldn't be no, right? And so, especially today, I tell a lot of sort of aspiring investors that want to get into the space, there's never been a better time to do it. People are looking at their team page and they need someone that looks different. We're at a time where I'm asking everyone to look around and saying, if you want to get in, now's the time. And we're sort of in this moment. So, I know I'm a little bit off on sort of how I got here, but I just say, like, anyone on the phone that wants to do that, make sure that you network with people that are in the space already. I am excited to see more people that look like us on team pages, and we have to leverage the people that we know to help you get in there, because it's just a hard club to get into, whether you're a founder, whether you're an investor. Tony's blazed the trail, but there's lots of us sort of following as we've gone on. So I think it's quite interesting, but the time is now. There's never been a better time if you want to do it, to get funded or to try to get into the space, because there's so much there's so many eyes on trying to make this, on trying to have more access to the spaces that we play in today.
Outstanding. Thanks so much, Shawn, and thanks for giving a shout out to Mr. Wilkins there. I know he's definitely been a pioneer, if you will, in this space, and so that's great that you're also participating here as well. Nathan, can you share with us your journey as well? Talk about your organization, your company, and again, how you got into the technology space, which we know does not have a lot that look like us or are able to mentor us. So please share.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Vince, and thanks for having me. Not too dissimilar to Shawn, I'm sort of an accidental entrepreneur. Throughout my career, I started out just wanting to make money, like most kids coming out of college. I sort of fell backwards into investment banking and ended up making, some decent money, but wasn't really feeling super fulfilled, wasn't really super thrilled at the path forward in that career. So I went to the University of Chicago, where I got my MBA. Wanted to come out and do consulting. Did that work, and again, it was great. It was exciting. It was strategic, but it was a little unfulfilling, making big companies more money by either making them more efficient in laying off people or helping them just drive revenue through different means. So from there, I went to Village MD, and I thought, this is it, right? I'm in healthcare. I'm working around something that can help people, all of the companies in healthcare, especially over the last year, are champions in my eyes. But when I looked around, I saw this is great. We're helping people stay healthy, but there's a significant population out there that's being overlooked, and that's the Black and Brown communities and the disparate access to healthcare, the health inequities. And I said, okay, I want to come up with a solution to try and help those communities and the practices that work with those patients. So that was really the impetus for Clinify Health. And what we do is we work with practices, providers in underserved communities, medically underserved communities, to help transition to new models of reimbursement that were ushered in under the Affordable Care Act. And in this way, our mission is really, if you can keep a practice in a community, you can make that community healthy for 5, 10, 15, 20 years into the future. Whereas if these practices go out of business or close, it has a ripple effect and keeps these socioeconomic barriers in place. So it was really just an idea, and I took that idea and drove around on the south side of Chicago with PDFs in my trunk, trying to talk to different hospitals, getting told no a lot, and then through pivoting, some perseverance, ended up getting a little traction, and ultimately really was surrounded by other folks in the community that are in the healthcare space that really bought into the mission that I was trying to drive. And through that, met my co-founder, and we ended up getting some funding and are now operational in a couple of states. I would say if I had set out to be an entrepreneur coming out of undergrad, I don't know that I'd be here. So, to take a piece of, again, Shawn's advice, you should always have a strategic vision, but try and stay as tactical as possible, get as many experiences as you can as possible. And eventually you're going to find that alignment. For me, I knew that it eventually had to be a mission-driven orientation of the company that I would run if I were to be an entrepreneur. And things find a way of working out if you put your head down and apply a little intellect and a little perseverance. And I've been blessed to be put in this position that very few who look like us are in, running companies, especially in digital health, working with large insurers. And I think the onus is on us as entrepreneurs or folks that are looking to become entrepreneurs to take advantage, as Shawn said. Now is the time. There's a spotlight being shown on the gaps in whether it's funding, VC, finance, or entrepreneurship that a lot of folks on this call and across the country have the ability to sort of fill.
Outstanding. Some really good shares there. So thank you all. I think some of the things that I've heard from that was really that each of you have possibly stumbled into entrepreneurship, if you will. I can share with you that as an entrepreneurial advisor, that it is not meant for everyone. And like you said, Nathan, if you would have thought of this right after undergrad, you probably wouldn't have done it. And I always like to share that I think that for the entrepreneurial journey, that if this were easy, then everyone would be doing it, right? But we know it's not easy. And so that's what also separates us and provides us this grit, if you will, and these opportunities for these best shares and these best practices like what we're doing right now. What I also heard from this is that it takes a lot of resilience. And we know that as Blacks today, during a pandemic in our respective careers and lives, that we have a history of being resilient. And so entrepreneurship coupled with that also intensifies or strengthens our resiliency. So if you can share with the listening audience, Dr. James, what is it that fuels you, if you will, to keep this journey going? You've taken this 17-year-long career as a pharmacist, a retail pharmacist, meaning that you're dealing with a lot of different things, if you will, from that point. But then now in the midst of a pandemic, when we know that most in our community, probably, pharmacy deserts and the such, and now you're translating that into still providing services for the communities that you're in. Can you share with the audience a little bit about that?
So for me, the biggest thing, I've always known I wanted to give back. I've always had mentors or people that I've looked up to that helped me along the way. So the biggest thing is that growing up, it was to make sure that I give back my knowledge to my community or to others, because somebody got me to where I am right now. It wasn't something that I got by myself. So my biggest thing, and my parents kind of instilled in me, is that you have to give back. And the biggest thing is that I didn't see that many even become pharmacists, like people that you can just talk to. You can call to say, I know a pharmacist, or I know someone that knows about entrepreneurship or things like that. And then with being in retail, it's a whole different field that you're learning the game while also becoming an entrepreneur. Is kind of a plus and it's a negative, but at the same time, it's a positive side because you get to see how the business, for me, Walgreens was one of the best companies ever, but you're also learning the way that they do their things. So you can say, maybe I want to do something different. And then going into the virtual events that we've done, it was more so of helping everybody. So learning how to do college tours, education is the biggest thing to me. So making sure that students have that, access, because a lot of students didn't have that access when this pandemic started. They can't go to campuses. They don't know about different programs. So to be able to give certain things that people feel like I can't do right now, so I'm just going to forget about it. No, let's get some experts up here. Let's start talking. So we've been having a lot of events that are either geared towards healthcare, education, graduations, fundraisers. People can still keep those things going, because at first it was like the world stops. No, it doesn't. Everyone is still making money. Everyone is still doing their own thing. It's just, what's going to be my niche to make sure that the world knows how to kind of get the word out about different things. So that was the best thing about becoming an entrepreneur now, because I get to actually do that. I get to actually do it virtually, or people get to still have their events, their scholarships, or learn more about schools. So to be able to do that in different avenues, as well as work in healthcare, it's just a plus, because it's a 360. You get to do everything all at once. And it's all about managing your time. So I don't feel overwhelmed because I do it on my time. So it works out perfect.
Absolutely. No. And that's a great share. I think you touched on a couple of different things there. What I think of the pandemic right now is an opportunity that we get to get in front of. We get to get in front of a wider audience through this virtual platform. As we all know, here in Chicago, with this crazy weather right now, if we were to have this event live in person at the Polsky Center or something like that, we probably would have had 3 people show up, right? But look at what we're able to take advantage of now. And so I mentioned that because it's an opportunity, if you will, that has presented itself. And so I'm going to pose a different question to you, Shawn, and to you, Nathan, and I'll let either one of you jump in. We know that the journey for entrepreneurship, and particularly the journey for Blacks in businesses, have always really stemmed around access to capital, meaning that it still continues to be a problem today. I run an organization here, and I have a great team of individuals that work with us, where we certify businesses that are minority owned and then connect them with major buying corporations and government entities. And the constant thing I still continue to hear is access to capital. Can you help us with access to capital? So I want to pose to your questions. Shawn, I know that's your wheelhouse. I know what it is that's going on, but then Nathan, on your side, what was it like for you to even break into that space? Because again, it's non-traditional, if you will, in that industry to even gain that access. But then I also want to double down on this with you guys and say, what is that like, meaning access to customers? Because ultimately, you can have all the money in the world, and if nobody's buying your stuff, right, you're back at square one. So please share your knowledge there.
Go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, I wish I had, some super deep answer for you, Vince. But the truth of the matter is my lead investor is a Black-owned VC fund, right? My first 5 clients were run by Black CEOs. Maybe that's a coincidence, or maybe that's, the only opportunities that I was able to afford. And as we've gotten more traction, other folks have come out of the woodwork. We've, diversified our clients and stuff, but it's a problem, right? And I don't know what the answer is, except to say more empathy. I've never sat on Shawn's side of the table, being a VC, but my assumption is that, just like everything else in life, if you look like someone, you talk like someone, you have the same background as someone, it's easier to do business with them, whether it's a venture capital fund giving money, or, in our case, a clinical organization giving business. It's a barrier. And I know I'm part of a new VC fund that's in partnership with 1871 to try and bridge this gap, because there's not, a mathematical solution to it. It's really qualitative in nature, the problem. I think it's changing with some of the recent events, right? With George Floyd, and the spotlight being shown on the very little capital that is going to minority founders, but it's still a problem. It's still a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had an elegant answer as well. I feel overwhelmed sometimes, to be honest. Like, this summer was overwhelming at some point. Like, I have this platform, I got here, how do I use it for the most good? And it just felt overwhelming. Like, it just, I can't help everybody, and I sort of like went into a little bit of a shell, and because everyone was reaching out, and it was one of and so, I tell you that because I reached out to MJ, and I was just like, what do I do? Like, use me any way you can use me, and like, I will give whatever time that I can. And that was the honest truth. And like, I was overwhelmed because I didn't know how to help. And so it took me a few months to step back, just because the summer was so raw and everything that was going on. And I'm like, look, I know this isn't a short-term problem. So how do I look at this strategically? And because this problem is going to be here next week, next month, next year, next decade, it's not going away. And I can't fix it in 2 weeks, and I can't just give out money to Black people. Like, it's not the answer, right? And so I had to go back to almost what are the root causes. And so I was like, maybe I have to go to CPS and figure out like how we start educating people on, you can be like the word entrepreneur. Like, I'm not even sure people even understand what that means. And maybe I got to go earlier and earlier. And then the other thing I figured out was like, okay, I got to go recruit white people. Like, that was the other thing too. I was like, I can't do this on my own, or I can't do it with the 5 or 6, other Black investors in Chicago, like, and I can't change the world. So it was, my decisions was, how do we own our own backyard? Like, that was the first thing I got to. Like, I can't boil the ocean. So let's start just in Chicago, and let me go talk to the people in Chicago, and let me talk to the organizations that are in Chicago, and let me try to figure out if I can go earlier in the process. Because the easy answer for most investors there aren't enough qualified Black founders out there, right? That's the lazy answer, right? There's just not enough, right? And oh yeah, I talked to one and that was it. And but it's because when you fish in the same pond, you're going to catch the same fish. You know, like you have to fish in a different pond or else, and you have to look other places. And if you don't, you're going to end up with the same type of fish. So it is a multi-pronged effort across the board in education. Even if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to have the right paperwork. Like people don't even understand the right paperwork to fill out. You know, like you come to like, hey, you got to do your taxes. And like, oh no, I don't do that. Like, I'm not gonna let anyone know what my taxes are about. Like, so you can't get a loan, you can't get capital, you can't do it. So, I mean, it is, the problem is immense. It's overwhelming at some point. And all I've said is, I can't do it alone. Let me take little pieces over time and let me recruit 20 people to help me so I don't feel so overwhelmed. And I said, what I'm going to actually do is I'll help you curate things, and maybe it's money and maybe it's time and maybe it's mentorship and maybe it's all these things, but I'll be the tip of the spear, and I'll just like bring stuff back, because that way I feel like I can affect change. And I've always like, I'm like, if I could affect 50 people, and those 50 people can affect 50 people, then I can start to change the problem. Because if you try to change it from too big, it gets overwhelming. And that's what I did. I like got overwhelmed and shut down, and had to like sort of come back out and say, okay, how do we do this? And how do we get others involved? And it was just, so, I mean, the answer is talk to as many people as you can, try to give as much access as you can. And also, you know, I think you said, Nate, just the empathy thing. Like, I don't want people to reach out to Black people and say, hey, can you know, what do you need now? It felt like a really weird moment this summer where like everyone, you know, people are reaching out to you and saying like, oh, how can I help you? And it's like, why are you helping me now? Like, you know, why didn't you help me last week? But I got over that a little bit, and I was like, I need to help. So if now is the moment, let's go do this. But it's going to be here next week, next month, next year, next decade. So like, let's be strategic about it. And I think just having these conversations, getting other people involved, and it's just going to take time. And it's the realization that I can't change it overnight, and that I need other people to help. And you know, that's I think the way that I've done it. And I fish in a different pond now. That's what, but I have to be deliberate and intentional about it. And I like what you said, that you know, Melinda, those are two words I use all the time: be deliberate and be intentional, because you have to do something different or else you just get the same results.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, those were some great shares in there. I think you really touched on a couple of things that resonated personally for me. Particularly, I like the intentionality that you mentioned of your drive and what's getting you started and motivating you and keeping you going. And then also what we know we're continuing to experience today, even despite the pandemic, right? That like you said, you had this outreach from those that may not have reached out to you in the past to say, well, how can I help? And you're like, well, where were you at yesterday? You know, I can share, I've had some friends reach out to me that, you know, were non-people of color. And I was like, you ain't never said nothing to me before, you know, I was just there now. What I'd like to talk about now is, let's pivot a little bit into if you could do something different, what would that be? Again, knowing what you know, and now we have this opportunity to kind of change our directions, right? Most companies are pivoting, coming up with new business models, identifying new customers. I think I look at the pandemic again as being a wealth of opportunities for many of us. How has that resonated for you in your respective journeys and what you're doing now? We'll start with you, Nathan.
Yeah, so I guess what I'd say, and it ties a little bit to the last question, a lot of times entrepreneurs look for, you know, the thing that's going to create new value. And what I've learned from specifically what we do at Clinify is that there's a lot of untapped value all over the place. And especially when you talk about the Black community and our culture, there's so much wasted value that either, you know, we give away or we don't actually leverage for our benefit, that I think had I had the opportunity to talk to, Nate from 10 years ago, I would have said, hey, find opportunities where there's, asynchronicity in some situation and figure out a way to align the value chain so that you're now creating a new path of value. And if you can do that, you'll start to see opportunities all over the place. And then from that point, it's, strategizing and executing. What I did do, which is the hard path, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs do, is they say, how can I come up with this thing that, creates value or is super novel or is something that no one's ever thought of? And that happens, right? I mean, there's companies all the time, especially with technology, that create something that no one ever thought of, and it's immensely valuable, but it's really rare. Usually it's in today's day and age, that low-hanging fruit is gone. And you have to think almost the reverse way and say, hey, how do I look at this in a way that fixes a problem that either people see and don't acknowledge, or they don't see at all? And that in and of itself can become its own industry. So I guess if I could go back, that's what I would have done, is reframe my perspective a little bit as to what it meant to be an entrepreneur. It's not necessarily the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, right? It's people doing a lot of the little things to create value in broken systems.
Outstanding. Yeah, very good, Nathan. And for our other two panelists, I still pose the same question, but I'd like to chime in that, the Chicago chapter of the National Black MBA has really prided themselves on aspire to inspire, which is really what we're hoping to share with this panel discussion, and then some of the things that they're doing throughout the remainder of the year. Again, celebrating 50 years of being, identified as the National Black MBA and starting here in Chicago. And so for you, Dr. James, can you share, same question, what it is that is helping to position you now differently during the pandemic?
I would say the biggest thing is my network. The biggest thing is that, like, I've always done a lot of events with being on different boards and being presidents and things like that. And I've always been told, like, why don't you start this? Why don't you do this and do that? And I'd be like, no, I'm busy. Like, I'm trying to live my life. I'm young. And I'm also trying to still be a pharmacist. Like, I'm a whole doctor right now too. But it's honestly my network. My network really pushed me, and business partner as well, Brianna, who's also another alumni from Historically Black College. And we have been doing events for years and just really creating these things. And we have been told for years to really just do something together. And we just were, and I was just like, no, because I don't have the time. But in terms of entrepreneurship, it was like, you make your own time. So you tell people, if you can't do it, this, like, you want to help. You generally want to help people. But then when you're an entrepreneur, you learn that there's wins and losses and everything that you do, but it's really creating, the time they want. You don't have to do it full time. Like I said, I don't do it full time. I literally do it when I want to do it. And I also have a business partner, so we collaborate together. But my network really has pushed me to really do events, to really, be creative and them create things that they know I can assist them with. So creating my event knowledge as well as my partner, it has helped me to really just go full force and to keep going, because we're almost a year and a half in. So it's still learning. We're still doing things, still learning mistakes. But at the same time, my network of just entrepreneurs or just people that have seen me for years are just like, okay, change this up. Let's try this. Let's do this. So I think being able to position yourself around your network of different people that are either doing what you want to do or doing better, or older people. I have a lot of older people that are just like, how can I learn? Like, that's my perspective. So I think network is the biggest thing for me.
Oh, that's a good share. How about for you, Shawn? I think
I'll piggyback on that network thing, because what COVID has allowed everyone to do is meet people that they typically wouldn't meet. But I will caveat that as an investor, how people approach you. So because you have the opportunity to reach out to so many folks digitally now, you should, but please, please, please don't ask me for a cup of coffee. Don't not send a message to me. I think if you can add value, don't try to pitch me on 2 sentences on LinkedIn. Like, that's not going to be like, and have an ask. I can't tell you, I get off the phone, every phone call, I promise myself, and I say, how can I be helpful? And 90% of the time, people don't know how to answer that question. Like, can you introduce me to people? And I was like, thank you, but no thank you. Like, you're like, so be deliberate in your ask. Make sure it's not a bunch of work for somebody else to do that. If you want to meet someone in their network, they're happy to do that, but tell them why. And when you do reach out, be deliberate in what you're asking for. And it's not a sales pitch. Many people are, when you get, I think in your 20s and 30s, you're probably more worried about yourself and make your own money. As you get older, you start to figure out, like, how can I give back a little bit and have a little bit more time? And people are willing to do that, but be intentional in your ask and have an ask, and make sure that, that it doesn't cause a bunch of other work for somebody else, but leverage the digital world, because I would have never met all of you, in that case. Right. So use it. I agree. That's the way to do it, but there is a way to go about it to expand your network, because it's all about the people that you know. Everyone says that, but it really is. I wouldn't have this job if it wasn't for the people I know. So.
Outstanding. Yeah, no. So I've heard networking, I've heard reaching out to your sphere, your influence, your personal board of directors, if you will, those that really get what you're doing and want to help. But then I also like to go back to what Nathan said of his first supporters being those that look like him, right? Those that truly understood probably his journey, and that what challenges he may or may not be encountering, but just saying, hey, I see what you're doing and I want to support that. I think that that's also pretty critical for a lot of those that are even thinking of going into the entrepreneurial space, or working with it. But I also like what Dr. James shared, that she has a business partner, and what they do is they feed off of one another's strengths and weaknesses. And so if one of them maybe is the people person or is in the tech space, then for sure they can share that strength there. If the other is really good in accounting, there you go. I realize I'm not good in any of them, so you hire someone to do that. Right? Let's go into I think each of you may have touched on this. Your personal mentors now, can you share what advice they've provided you that say you continue to look at every day? I have a vision board that I keep here in my office, and it's on my mirror. And I use the term, if you fail to plan, then plan to fail. Now, that wasn't from a mentor. I think it was my grandmama used to say it or something like that. But do you have something like that you can share with the audience here that really resonates, but also just provides, again, that fuel to really what keeps us going during these times?
I've been fortunate to have a lot of mentors that have been really great and got me here. And I always ask them, tell me why I can't do it. I make them give me an answer why I cannot do it, because they know me. I've either worked for them, they've known me for a long time, and I said, tell me the reasons why I'm going to fail. And that inspires me, and I said, be honest with me, tell me the truth. Where do I have gaps? And tell me why this isn't going to work. And then they know me well. And not only does it give me motivation, but it also helps me. Maybe I need a skill that I didn't have before, so let me go get it.
That's huge. I don't think I've ever asked that in my entire life. And I'm definitely going to adopt that in. How about for you?
It's humbling. Expect the answer. It might not be the answer you expect. So
Right. Very good. Very good. How about for you, Nathan? Identified a mentor that's really helped you, especially considering the space that you're in. And like you said, you went and you knocked on a few doors and you got those doors slammed. And then you went to others and then you got those yeses. And so what continues going you there from that aspect?
Yeah, so the mentor that I probably comes to mind is someone I met in college and has been a mentor ever since, individual by the name of Alan Page. Former football player, became a Supreme Court justice in Minnesota. So really well credentialed. And early on, he told me something that his parents had told him, which was essentially that, if you give your best at anything you do, then you know that you've done the best you can. And he said, even if you are a garbage collector, go out every day and be the best garbage collector that you can be. And, when I decided to do this, that's the mentality that I had, that, hey, this may fail, right? It's a high probability that this could fail. But if I give 100%, to quote unquote, leave it all on the field, then even if it fails, I know that I've done everything that I could do within my powers. So that's, definitely the advice that was in the back of my head when doors were being closed, when phone calls weren't being returned. And, inevitably, I feel like if you do the best you can do in every situation, those doors start to open, and those phone calls are not only returned, but you get phone calls from folks that you weren't expecting to. So I'd say that's the biggest piece of advice that I keep in my mind, even to this day. And, tie that to not being complacent. Treat every day like it's your internship, and do the best you can.
Outstanding. That's great. How about for you, Dr. James? I know we're coming up on time here, and I'd love to open the floor up to some questions from any of the participants in the audience for these great panelists. But Dr. James, can you share a mentor for you, especially in the space that you're in and now transitioning with entrepreneurship too, that would resonate with us?
I would say the biggest thing is just be yourself. In the mix of everything, it's know the reason why that you're doing what you're doing. It's truly to really help people. Like, I don't really do a lot of things from the money perspective. It's to really make sure that I'm really spreading the knowledge and wealth to other people. So for me, you're going to fail regardless. I learned that in pharmacy school. You're going to get F, a D, a C, whatever. It happens. But if you know that your reason is to really, truly help people, it's not like I didn't go into this thinking I would just make a whole bunch of money. I knew that I wanted to help people. And ironically, it helps me make money. But I know in the gist is that now that I know how to become an entrepreneur, it is to also help other younger people, because this is something that a lot of people are just not used to. This is something that's different. So for me, it's to make sure that, okay, I have knowledge. I've done very well in certain things for the past year or two within our company. So how can I help others? Because when you see what our young people are going through right now, and they're still trying to find themselves, it's kind of like, you can find yourself, you can do what you need to do, but here's another option. So I would just say, just be yourself. And that's the biggest thing that a mentor has told me. This is with most of my mentors, just be yourself. People love when people are just genuinely themselves.
I love that. Great share. Thank you so much for that. I do want to acknowledge in our audience our Madam President, Stacy Crook of the Chicago chapter of the National Black MBA, as well as Madam Past Vice President, Amelia is in the audience as well, Amelia Jackson. So thank you both for attending and participating and sharing your love and guidance and leadership and good stuff with the chapter as well. I'm going to open up the floor now. I normally would do some power questions, if you will, just kind of like let us get to know who you are. But I think you all shared so much valuable information. But what I also want to share before we open up to the floor is I think that what each of you touched on is that it takes a village to do this. And that's what we've created right now, is this village of support, this village of opportunities, this village of other individuals to reach out to. So I thank each of you for that. And I thank you all for this opportunity to also be able to share this here. So let's go into to some of the questions there. Is it Yolande? Did you have a question?